Hey there, and welcome to my presentation for PFTR 2491. This is the final presentation for the practicum that I had at St. Joseph's High School. My name is Justin Mercier, and you can just follow along as I present these slides. So just general information here, my practicum was at St. Joseph High School, which is only a few blocks away from Nate. I wanted to go to this practicum site because I have a huge interest in working with kids, especially in the future. And my role there was a strength and conditioning coach for the high school football team. And so I was actually there with Sean Raymond, who's an in-class Nate student in the PFT program. And he initially kind of took the lead on the more functional fitness stuff, and I took the lead on the kind of strength and Olympic weightlifting. And then he was only there for about 3 weeks, so then I had to actually just do the whole programming. And this was a really good opportunity for me because I was able to learn a lot from Sean, and then I was actually able to kind of challenge myself a little bit with it. The main coach or supervisor was Adam Skitsko, and he's the main coach of the high school football team. And so everything I did was kind of through him, but he let us have kind of free reign on the programming that we wanted to do. He kind of said, actually he did say, this is your canvas, paint it, and that kind of struck a chord with me because I've never really been in charge of something that big before, and I just really jumped on the opportunity and made it my own. So this is the hour log that I created for this practicum site. As you can see, it's mostly just lunch circuits and the after-school workouts, and there's usually just a theme that I put in there for what we did in the after-school workout. So typically we tried to have kind of 3 different styles of day. So we had a speed and agility day, a strength day, and an Olympic weightlifting day, so that's more of a power day. However, we did have to play with this a little bit just based on what we had available for us during the days that we had these training sessions. So, and sometimes there were PD days which kind of threw everything off. So sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 days of training per week, and we'd either have to cram it in or stretch it out to kind of accompany what we had available as far as whether it was the gymnasium or the weight training center, or just accommodating the amount of days in the week that we had available for these sessions. So as far as programming goes, the lunch workouts were typically circuit-based to focus primarily on conditioning. And so the after-school workouts kind of worked on like strength, power, speed, and agility, but these lunch workouts kind of worked on conditioning, just throwing a lot of movements in there and trying to make sure that they, kind of worked synergistically to accomplish a certain goal. So typically we'd have like 1 minute at each station, and the way Adam Skitsko had it laid out, there's 9 stations in the gym. And so the first station has dumbbells and free weights, second station has kettlebells and medicine balls, third station has benches or like an open area, so burpees and body weight movements are possible there as well. The fourth station has battle ropes, then there's bikes, and then there's the Olympic weightlifting platforms. So you can do anything from bench press, deadlifts, squats, power clean, snatches, anything with a barbell really, or anything without a barbell because there's lots of space on the platforms as well. Then you have the box jump station, so they're like a plyometric station, I guess, but it's primarily just boxes there, so they can do some sort of power development. Then they have a back hyperextension station, so we typically kind of alternate between doing sit-ups on the floor there and doing the back hyperextensions, just so they're kind of having a more well-rounded core. And then finally there's a pull-up station, but one thing I introduced that Adam didn't really think about before was that you can do a lot more with a bar than just pull-ups, so we introduced some like hanging knee and leg raises and stuff like that, and even just kind of working on grip strength, like just holding onto the bar for a minute straight can be a little bit taxing for some of the students. So as I was mentioning earlier, the after-school programming was typically about 3 days a week. It would be a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. However, some PD days threw that off a little bit, and they actually had a surprising amount of PD days. So I'd say every other week, the Thursday or the Tuesday would be non-existent, so we kind of had to work around that a little bit. So the focus of the day would either be strength, power, or speed agility. Now obviously just based on what we had available. Sometimes we'd have to split these up or combine them. So do like a power and strength, or do like an upper body strength and a lower body strength, just depending on kind of what we had available for the week and what we kind of wanted to focus on for that week as well. So for the strength training days, there's a lot of variation in strength exercises. Obviously, you want to create a nice, well-rounded, full-body program. But I would say there was more emphasis placed on the lower body, just because a lot of the students had already trained a lot of upper body. And so like their upper bodies were already very strong. Their bench presses, shoulder presses were very strong, just because they're in that age where they want to have a nice big upper body and look good for the girls and stuff like that. But what they didn't realize is that like most of your power, and especially in football, can come from your legs. When you're tackling someone or like kind of driving through someone, you're not really pushing with your arms. You're not like doing a bench press of that person in front of you. You're driving with your legs and just dropping your shoulder. So one thing we did kind of focus on is using the power and strength from your legs instead of using as much upper body strength. But we did create a nice holistic program for them. Most emphasis was placed on compound movements, so squats, lunges, chest press, shoulder press, deadlift, pull-ups, and push-ups, stuff like that, just incorporating more than one joint at a time, just to kind of work on the synergy between muscles and just developing some more movements that would be replicated in a football program. So the main coach, Adam, he had a pretty big push for Olympic weightlifting to develop power. Now, obviously, this isn't necessarily the only way to develop power. There's a lot of plyometric exercises you can do as well. But from his knowledge and his background in football coaching, he thought that power development is best developed through Olympic weightlifting. And I did my research, and it was pretty conclusive that Olympic weightlifting does in fact help the power development in football athletes. So we went ahead and did that. Now I actually have a pretty solid background in Olympic weightlifting. I've been doing it for about a year and a half now, and I've actually had like some pretty intense personal training for myself from a personal trainer, and I also have the theoretical knowledge behind it. I've watched tons of videos, probably in the hundreds, of just like different form techniques, different cueing for Olympic weightlifting, stuff like that. So this was something I definitely felt comfortable with, and I was actually really excited to instruct, because a lot of these athletes are very new to it, and it's a highly technical skill to have. And so actually just seeing these athletes do it relatively flawlessly, like I mean, they seem to kind of just pick up on it easier than an adult would, because they don't really have a whole lot of preconceived or preset muscle patterns or movement patterns. They're a lot more like malleable, more able to make movements happen a little bit easier than an adult would be, maybe, and a lot less movement restrictions as well. So like in the front rack position, I had very few students who had mobility issues for that, whereas there are a decent number of adults that actually have a lot of issues with that. So this was a really cool programming tool for me, and it was really fun to be able to execute some of these programs for them. So speed and agility is something that Adam also really drove for. They have a speed agility ladder actually painted on the floor in the main weight training area for them. And so this is usually served as our warm-up for pretty much any day that we had training, actually. So they would kind of get their heart rate up just by doing a circuit that Adam had designed in the past. And obviously I was there to kind of instruct or modify if any of the students were having any issues with it. But then most of our speed agility training came in the gym, which is pictured in this slide here. We use a lot of cones just so that they can have like multi-directional movement. Also just placing in the gym, it's really easy for them to kind of follow along when there's a designated spot for them. Did a lot of sprinting, a lot of band work as well, just to kind of get the additional kind of speed and power that they would need if someone was like holding them back in football, for example. So the banded work is really relevant in that situation as well. So we did quite a few different things with them in the gym, and they're all listed on here on this slide here. So as far as modifications in the programming goes, we started with fundamentals, obviously just doing quick tutorials on how to do a deadlift, how to do a squat, how to do a bench press, how to, and then the power movements, so the clean and the snatch, those took a lot longer to do just because they're a lot more technical. But we did start very slow with those, and we spent probably 2 weeks doing those movements and making sure that they all had like a strong foundation of the strength and power movements. And then when we started the lunch workouts, we did some obviously the conditioning workouts. It was 9 stations for the first workout, and it was only 30 seconds each station because Adam wanted us to start like very, very slow and low. And we did that, and we actually had 2 students who ended up puking. So we had to have a pretty big talk about, knowing the students' limits and knowing where to stop, where to pace themselves so that they can last that full amount of time and still kind of, well, be healthy with it, right? Just have the energy to move on to the next station and just know what their limits are. So initially we just had to talk to them about reducing their intensity and building that capacity. And now they can go a minute solid without having to, they're not puking anymore, and also they're getting nice sweat on, they're breathing heavy, and they're really pacing themselves a lot better now. Now, rapport is something that I find very valuable. Obviously, you're not going to get any results if the person you're talking to doesn't want to talk to you, right? They don't want to hear anything you say. So having solid rapport is something that's going to make the client do the movements that you want them to do, and they're going to see better results from it. Now, in this situation, I built rapport with Adam Skitsko, the main coach, as well as the students on the team. And this is just one of the comments that Adam made in my final review. It said, Justin has really developed a close relationship with most of the students. And this is true. I try and develop a relationship with most of the students, try and develop a relationship with all of them, but some of them obviously their personalities just aren't going to line up, or they're not showing up enough that I can't really create that relationship. But I think that I've created a strong rapport with Adam as well. He kind of just leaves it free range for us to train the students as much as we want, and he kind of like lets us do that by ourselves. So it's a bit more difficult to build rapport with him just because he's not around as often, but we've done a really good job of communicating over text and in person, and it's really nice just to be able to know that he's there when I'm not, and I'm there and he's not, and we've just done a really good job of teaming up and tackling this whole programming together. So there's a few different measures of success that we have. So the first one is obviously it's just a quantifiable way to see where the students' numbers are at and like how much progression they've made. So we have the statistics wall. It has their just the statistics for like their max clean and jerk, clean, snatch, deadlift, bench press, squat, beep test, and then we have also a push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups category. And so these just kind of give us measures for power, strength, and muscular endurance. And the students they're accountable to make sure that they update their statistics as they improve on them. So it's up to them. Obviously, this isn't the most effective way because they might forget to do it or something like that. But this is the way we do it, and it's really nice to be able to see those numbers going up. One of the ways that we kind of pushed to create a success in the students is we had a little St. Joseph's football combine. So it was a competition with a power assessment, a strength assessment, and a speed or endurance assessment. So we had a 1 rep max clean, then a 1 rep max deadlift, and then the beep test. And so then all the students were ranked on their performance. And I really stress that an athlete is good at everything. Obviously, the linemen might be stronger or more powerful than let's say the receivers or something like that. But I think that in fitness, it's really important to be well-rounded. And so the way we did this is the top scores overall got the prizes, as seen in the bottom corner there. And I actually organized, so I never actually had to pay for any of that. It was all organized through my fitness Instagram account called YEG Gym Review. And yeah, it was just really cool to see that the whole community kind of like support just a small competition like this. It was really tremendous to see that people are willing to kind of donate their own stuff just to see some students succeed. Now, obviously, measures of success are not just quantifiable. There's a lot of increased confidence in the students, more drive to succeed, and they're a lot more competitive than they were at the beginning. So I'm just seeing them, and they're really like proud of the numbers they have on the board. They're proud to be able to lift the amount of weight to do. They're proud to be fit, I guess. They have more drive to succeed. Like they actually like want to keep showing up. Initially, it was kind of hard to get them to come around and actually go to the workouts, but now they're really interested in bettering themselves, which is great to see. And they're also really competitive. And I mean, this can be a deterrent for some people, just because they might not be as good as someone else. But it's also really good because usually they're competing with someone that's very close to them. They're not usually like the one rep max deadlift guy isn't talking to someone who can only deadlift like 90 pounds. He's talking to the guy that's right next to him that's pushing him, right? So, and same with other assessments. They're comparing themselves to the people that are very close to them and trying to catch up or stay ahead of the people that are right on their heels. So this is just the client satisfaction slide that I have here. There's positive feedback from both the coach and students. So the coach in this situation, I'm going to say, is like part of the clientele because he's the person that I'm designing the programming for. It's not necessarily like, I mean, it is for the students as well, but it's the coach that I'm kind of like catering most of these things to based on his needs, right? So it's really important that I make him happy just so that the football program itself is really solid for him. Now the general observations and comments that he made are just, I'm over the moon about them. It's fantastic to see how much positive feedback he had for me, and even just the students after every workout. Not every workout, but after a lot of the workouts, they're like, "Oh, thanks so much for showing me that. Like it was a really cool opportunity for me." And even just today, they said, "Hey, like I can't wait to do cardio." And like at the beginning, they just didn't want to at all, and they are just so satisfied and fulfilled by the fact that they're getting better at what they're doing, and it's just awesome to see. There's just a couple of challenges I had. The group classes kind of make it difficult to determine what kind of workouts we can do for the day. It just really varies who's going to show up that day. We've had anything from 2 people up to I think 18, and so it's just really hard to kind of juggle that based on. Well, I mean, like it's hard to plan a workout and then execute it based on the number of people that show up, because sometimes you're anticipating like an average of 10 and you'll have 18 show up and you're like, how do I incorporate everyone into like the 5 different stations that we have in the strength day? But we definitely made it work to the best of our abilities. Obviously, we had to juggle a little bit, improvise a little bit, but that's totally fine. That's part of the game. As far as the support network goes, Sean had to leave early, which is totally understandable. I totally get that. But it did put me out of a bit of a loss because I wasn't really sure. I mean, I've done my research into functional fitness and stuff like that, but Sean had more expertise on that, and I was kind of using him as a crutch. Like he was there for me to do those programming bits that I wasn't as comfortable with. So I had to really dive into it right after that, and that's what made me, I guess, a better, more well-rounded personal trainer, and that's great actually. I mean, it's a huge learning opportunity for me as well. Yeah, so this I kind of touched on before, is just juggling students who showed up day to day, but this is more to do with the movements that they've learned. So sometimes, like I had to do 4 different days of Olympic weightlifting tutorials while like someone else, either Adam or Sean, were doing like the main workout, just because it took a long time to kind of like teach everyone properly, and it's really important to go over those techniques just to make sure that they're actually learning the proper way to do it. As far as my professional performance goes, I scored myself fairly high on most of these categories just because I do feel like I did a really good job. Initiative and accountability, I got a 10 out of 10 just because I was always very proactive with the programming and letting Adam know everything that's going on at all times. Communication with staff and clients, I put in a 9 out of 10 just because there were some times that Sean and I actually just kind of miscommunicated, didn't actually have like the programming that we thought we had, or like one of us had thought we were supposed to do one thing where we were supposed to do the other. That's just a 9 out of 10, but it was very low key. There weren't any huge issues there. Info gathering, projects, and client data collection. So that's a 7 out of 10, just because the students were actually accountable for most of that. They were putting it up on the board there, and I wasn't really taking a whole lot of responsibility for that. Exercise, movement, demonstration, cueing, and presentation skills. So I gave myself a 9 out of 10 there because I'm very, very comfortable with the strength and Olympic weightlifting tutorials that we had. However, the functional fitness stuff, sometimes the movement demonstration and the cueing was a little bit off just because I was less familiar with it. Punctuality and availability. There was one of the very first days I just got the date, like their schedule is really weird. Their school just ends early on Thursdays for some reason, but that was totally my fault. I could have just clarified that with Adam early on. And so there's one day that I just didn't even show up because I thought it was 2.5 hours later that we're supposed to be there. And then for knowledge gained, I'd say a 10 out of 10. I learned a lot about functional fitness, speed and agility, and just how to create a well-rounded program, especially for a team, a group of people, which I'd never really done before. So it was really cool to kind of be able to tie everything together, especially with a team of students, which I'm very interested in coaching in the future. So to conclude this presentation, it was overall a very, very positive experience. Adam gave me a lot of insight into kind of what it means to be a coach. I learned a lot about motivating the students and just taking that leadership role. It was a great learning opportunity for those things. So for teaching a group, teaching students, teaching like functional fitness, Olympic weightlifting, and strength training. It was really cool to be able to incorporate everything there. And I exited my comfort zone a lot just by doing those things because I'd never really done a few of them before. So overall, it was a great experience. I would definitely go back there. I give this practicum opportunity like a 10 out of 10. And I think that students should definitely try and take this up in future semesters and years because while it's convenient, it's nice and close to Nate. It's such a great opportunity as far as the learning curve goes, and Adam has a really unique way of kind of like letting you roam free a little bit and just checking in when he feels like he really needs to, and that's probably the best way to learn, is just to hop right into it and really just do what you think you should be doing. So thanks so much for watching or listening to my presentation, and I've had a fantastic ride in this course.